I don't know about it, but it doesn't sound very promising. That's all I can say.
Okay, well, let's continue then with the model of using food as a weapon, because I happen to have an article here, the Livable Communities Act, and the stated goal is to force people under Agenda 21 into sustainable cities and only basically allow big agribusiness to operate. But sorry, I was just drawing parallels to here. Go ahead, please.
Of course, there are parallels to be made, but at that particular point in time, the fact that a one-party state was in control of all the food meant that if you did not work, if you did not go to the fields and perform the work that you were asked to do, or if you were too weak or too vulnerable or too old or and sometimes too young to actually earn your keep, you were banned from the canteen. And entire groups of people were deliberately starved to death during that period from 1958 to 62.
Didn't Stalin do something similar in Ukraine?
Very much a similar thing. In other words, what Stalin did in the Ukraine and in other parts of the Soviet Union was collectivize the countryside and strip every incentive to work away from the farmers. In other words, people were locked in this cycle of violence with party officials who were there to take as much grain as they could and farmers who saw no reason to work except fear.
Now you talked about being buried alive for small things. How would they execute people? And I remember back in 98 or so, there were some big books that came out in China that the government, officially sanctioned, where they talked about 80 million dead, and they talked about large stew pots of human flesh. Is that true, or is that a distortion?
That may have happened in a few very isolated cases, but the most common instrument of punishment at the time was a stick. You just beat people to get them into the fields. When they're too famished to work, you beat them to get up, or you strip them in the middle of the winter so that they have to work just to stay warm. The case of people being buried alive is reported all over China, from the north all the way to the south near Canton. In one case, a man is forced to bury his own son alive because his son has stolen a handful of grain. Well, this man obviously is heartbroken. He dies of grief after 3 weeks. He can't continue. And there are countless cases of torture taking place for the slightest misdemeanor against some party command.
Well, now if you don't follow the smallest order, you get tasered. People die every day of heart attacks. But I guess that's America, so it's okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I'd rather get tasered. I would rather get tasered than have one of my ears chopped off, or my nose lopped off, or being buried alive, or being poured, being covered in excrement, or being tied up and thrown into a pond, or being branded with a sizzling tool like an animal.
Amazing. Please continue, Professor.
Very common ways of punishing people at the time.
Please continue, Professor.
So what I've found, thanks very much to the party archives, which are only gradually opening up, so God knows what more is still hidden in the Central Party archives in Beijing. But on the basis of what is open now, it's unavoidable. The conclusion that 2 to 3 million people were actually killed is unavoidable as part of the 45 million people who died unnecessarily during those 4 years. An absolutely staggering number of people.
Professor, what's the grand total, though? Because I see numbers of 80 million, 60 million. I mean, what's the real number from your research? Overall during the Mao reign?
Well, the frightening thing is that so far, the only one period after 1949 that we've been able to study on the basis of the Communist Party archives is the Great Leap Forward from 1958 to 62, when previous estimates range from 20 to 30 million. But on the basis of these unpublished documents, many compiled by the security police, by public security bureaus themselves, that has to go up to 45 million. Now, the question is, what happened during other periods? For instance, the Cultural Revolution, which started a few years later. Or what happened immediately after 1949, after the conquest of power by the Communist Party with a reign of terror? So far, people have claimed that 2 to 3 million people were killed. It might be much more. We simply won't know till we can have access to the archives.
How does the U.S. government...
That has only happened for that very short period referred to as the Great Leap Forward. So it's anybody's guess.
All right, Professor, stay there. We're going to tell folks how to get your book on the other side. We're very honored that you're spending time with us. I want to just continue with whatever you think is most important because you're the real expert on this. But I want to ask you when we come back, how does the U.S. government come up with the 64 million number then? And from your dead reckoning, is that high? Is that low? We'll continue with that on the other side. We'll be right back. Infowars.com is the website.
You've seen our SinoFresh banner on the GCN website.
Yet your sinusitis is still a problem.
Are you waiting for your sinusitis to go away by itself?
Are you waiting for a SinoFresh discount?
Okay, here it comes.
But first, the facts.
67 other products merely treat symptoms.
And not the cause of sinus problems.
And 37 million Americans suffer from sinus distress just like you. But now many are finding relief with the only patent-protected homeopathic nasal product that antiseptically eliminates the known causes of sinusitis. SinoFresh.
Now, here's your limited-time discount offer to use SinoFresh.
Call 888-906-3636 right now for $2 off per bottle when you mention GCN. That's it. Just call 888-906-3636 and mention GCN for a $2 discount.
But hurry, this offer is only for the first 1,000 customers.
Call 888-906-3636. 888-906-3636. Call right now for $2 off per bottle.
Mention GCN.
Buy SinoFresh.com. It works.
Let me tell you a little bit about one of our great sponsors, HomeGain.com. This is the place to get you started buying or selling a home, finding a realtor, and getting any real estate questions answered. Go to HomeGain.com and see what I'm talking about. All you need to do is type in your home address, and you will get an instant free estimate of your home's value online. This is a great way to be able to monitor the value of your home. And again, it's absolutely free. There are tons of tools to help you. For instance, if you want to remodel your home, go to HomeGain.com. Use their Home Sale Maximizer to help you determine which home improvements can most increase your home's value before you put it on the market. For 10 years, these folks have been helping home sellers and buyers. Visit their link at Infowars.com. Look for Max, the orange HomeGain gorilla, to help you with any real estate needs you might have. You'll love this site. It's HomeGain.com. HomeGain.com. Check them out today.
Gold. If you listen to the radio, watch TV, or surf the net, you are hearing about gold. Eventually you will ask yourself, is gold right for me? The answer might surprise you. We protect ourselves and our families from many things. Do you have medical insurance? Is your home insured? Do you carry life insurance? How about financial insurance? If you own gold, then the answer is yes. If you don't own gold, the question is, why don't you have financial insurance? We put our faith in things we trust. Do you trust the dollar? Do you trust the economy? Do you trust the government? Gold has always been something you can trust. For thousands of years, people have put their faith in gold. Where will you put your faith? Now is the time to protect yourself and your family. Call Midas Resources today at 1-800-686-2237, extension 242. 1-800-686-2237, extension 242, and ask for Jim Parker. Let me help you get started today. 1-800-686-2237, extension 242.
Great news for pure water lovers. The Big Berkey water filter is available once again. And stay tuned to hear about a valuable offer from Berkey Water Filters. Choosing the right water purification system can be a daunting task. That's why BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com shows you a cost and benefit comparison. The Berkey water filter is economical, with a single set of filters that can last for 5 to 10 years. Berkey water filters are healthy and far superior to other filtration systems. They remove harmful pathogenic bacteria, cysts, parasites, and unhealthy chemicals like chlorine. And Berkey water filter systems are powerful enough to purify both treated and untreated water, like stagnant ponds. Get the gold standard in water filters at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. For a limited time, choose a free shower filter, fluoride filters, or 2 Sport Berkey bottles with every system purchase. And GCN listeners get 5% off all ceramic filter systems. Details at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com or call 1-877-99-BERKEY. That's 1-877-99-BERKEY.
Don't forget, coming up in the next hour, we have a lawyer coming on, Judith McGeary, head of Farm and Ranch Freedom. we're going to go over all the legislation to start shutting down the family farms and ranches they're trying to pass. And it's all stated by the United Nations under Agenda 21. And they cite China as the model to control us. I mean, you can't make up this nightmare. And so I want you to know the plan here, hearing about Mao. And remember, Stalin did similar things, but just not on the same scale. We have, again, very prestigious researcher and professor on with us. And we're going to talk more about the book itself that goes into just horrifying detail. Continuing with your research, we were getting into the point, Professor. This is a short segment, long segment coming up. I was asking the question about 64 million is the number I see from the U.S. government. Where do they come up with that number? Do you know?
Pure speculation, pure speculation. I really don't believe that anybody's got any way of finding out how many died till we have full access to the archives. That's not going to happen anytime soon.
But in a 4-year period, it's 45 mil.
Yeah, it is. So it might be a lot more. We simply don't know.
What was it like for you when you got access to this, A, and B, how did you get access?
Well, I didn't exactly walk in and ask them to show me all the files about how they went around killing 45 million people. And they didn't exactly hand it over on the golden plate either. So it was all very indirect in the sense that I was asking to look at economic history of that period. And there was a lot of goodwill in the couple of years before the Olympics. There was a sense of opening up and making more material available. There was a good feel factor. And I used that time to read as much as I could in several dozen party archives, city archives, county archives, provincial archives. And in some cases, I didn't find much at all. In other cases, I simply wasn't allowed to read anything. And once in a while, I got very, very lucky. And when I read it, I have to say, I was quite prepared for tragedy, but nothing like what I encountered in the archives. I was still under the impression, like many others, that there simply wasn't enough food available, and that was why people died of hunger. I had no idea that the scope, the scale of coercion was so overwhelming. I had no idea that violence was very much the way in which those 4 years were governed by the party.
Well, Professor Dikötter, looking at what happened in China, in 75 they started the one-child policy as taxes, as you know, and then in 80 as law. I mean, it seems like China, well, we know they want to get rid of some of their population. And I'd seen in the 70s party leaders saying we would benefit from a nuclear war. So was there an idea that wiping out the countryside people, might be a good thing, or was it mismanagement? I mean, what was it?
Well, it's a complex series of factors, but what you say is actually quite accurate in the sense that at the time, people from the countryside were really seen, not just socially, but legally, as inferior to city residents. In other words, a farmer did not legally matter as much as a city resident. They were very much treated as a special caste. And during the Great Leap Forward, a sort of wall was built around the city, not a real wall, but the cities were fenced off from the countryside.
Well, they do that now. They lock the rural workers at night in the major cities, AP reports, in basically giant prisons.
Well, to this day, in fact, any migrant from the countryside can be arrested and locked up. And that law dates from the Great Leap Forward, 1958. The whole divide of the country, I mean, the real line that runs through that society, the real divide is countryside people and city people. And there's no doubt that the vast majority of victims during the Great Leap Forward, the tens of millions of people who died, were countryside people. And there's no doubt either that they were pretty much at the very bottom of the social hierarchy during that period.
Amazing, Professor. But again, the evidence shows, as you're saying, that the culture was already there to discriminate against the rural population. But why do we then see the communists do the same thing in Russia? And now we see the UN with this attitude, claiming they want to help the rural communities, but actually doing the opposite.